guys, it's Nurse J at Nursing the Truth, and I hope everyone is having a great day. Well, I really don't know if I've had a great day because I've been under so much stress today, and I've got my moss agate in my hand for grounding. So, been very busy today. A lot of illnesses going on, taking care of people in the hospital and family. Daughter today. So, I've been running around prescriptions, doing this and doing that. So, as usual, I am always looking for truth. When I read the Bible and I see that things don't look quite like they should or something seems funny, Nurse J is on the hunt. And usually someone has beat me to the punch, like a scholar, like someone that has a degree in ancient mythologies and or ancient studies. That's one thing I would love to do, is to get a degree in that. So what does this have to do with the Bible? Woo! Has a lot to do with the Bible. Because if you go, and I do have the Word, and yes, Thoth, and the Word was you, Theos, the Word, the mind of God. Anyway, if you go to Genesis chapter 10, this is our studies for today. And you're like, well, Nurse J, why in the world do you want to go with the Table of Nations? And why do you want to go with the Table of Nations? Well, would it surprise you? Would it knock you off your feet to know that you've been tricked again? You see, you cannot take the Bible as literal truth. Do you believe that Noah was the man of the day and his sons and all this stuff was true? And if we go back as like Adam, Seth, Enosh, Methuselah, Enoch, Lamech, and Noah, and then it goes to Jesus, well, that's not quite right. So why am I making such a big deal? Hold on, truth seekers. Hold on, Christians. Hold on, people of faith. And like I said, when you come on my channel, I don't mean no harm, because I was a Christian too at one time. Truth hurts, but I have to do surgery. The Table of Nations, my truth seekers and friends and pagans and atheists alike. This is no other than mythos from Greece. You see, put it in a nutshell for you, and then I'm going to read you some things. And I want you to take heed to this. You see, back in the day, when Egypt was trying to keep its land, they used Greek mercenaries to help them in their military. And then when these people that are in Israel today, true or not true, were in the Babylonian exile, they had information and mythos from the Medo-Persian Empire. So, what does that have to do? Because Japheth, Noah's son, you see, got to share Shem's tent, creeping in. But poor Canaan and Ham, what happened? And you see, and Noah awoke from his wine and knew what his younger son had done unto him. Well, in the scriptures you see Shem, Ham, and Japheth. Well, Japheth is the youngest son. So why did Ham's son Canaan get the boot? It's called sharing off the tailcoats of others. So let me go ahead and read you some interesting facts about how they did the penmanship and how we are slaughtering each other today over a lie that's trickled down. Now, scholars have been bewildered in Japheth's identity to Noah's blessings in Genesis 9:27, and some have noted the similarity of Japheth's name to the Greek titan Lepetos, which is Japetus in parentheses, but are a loss to explain the historical connection between these individuals. And why would a Hebrew bless a Greek or a descendant of the Greeks to co-rule the coveted promised land? Canaan, the Israelites. Shem, commonly being identified with the Israelites. The primary history, Genesis 2 through 2 Kings, never identifies an event that saw Noah's prophecy fulfilled, that Canaan would be co-ruled by Japheth and Shem. Perhaps this was a hoped-for event, which would transpire sometime in the future after 560 BCE. Primary history had been written in the exile in Babylon. So Genesis 9:27 says, God enlarged Japheth and let him dwell in the tents of Shem, and let Canaan be his slave. You see, Canaan, Africa, were black. So when you can write something and to make other people look as inferior to you, then you have them by the brains and the testicles. Scholars have long been intrigued by the similarity of names of Japheth, as in Genesis 10:1, and Lepetos. The quasi-Jewish Sibylline oracles make this association in the Greek-Roman period. In the Sibylline Jewish oracles, in which the sons of Noah are given the names of Greek gods. Shem is identified as Kronos, Ham with Titan, and Japheth as Lepetos. You liking this so far? Praise God for for the Greeks, and were killing for them. Until recently, however, most scholars were hesitant to assert that Japheth must be Lapithus. The German scholar Professor von Rad is an example of this hesitancy. From Greek mythology, we know of a Lapithus, the father of Prometheus, but we see no clear connection with the biblical use of the name. Now, Josephus, in his Antiquities, understands some of Japheth's descendants to be Greek nations. Javan is Ionia. Elisha is Elos, a province to Iona. Tarshish is Tarsus. Kittim is Cyprus. And the author says, I have traced some of these genealogies to Lapithus in the Greek myths found in classical dictionaries. So did you hear what I just said? The tables, the nation of tables, that is in Genesis 10, where it gives the sons of Japheth, Gomer, Magog, Madai, Javan, Tubal, Meshes, Tyrish, Tarshish, Kittim, Dudanim, are from classical mythologies. A name that is false. Lapithus, he was regarded by the Greeks as the ancestor of the human race. The Greek version of the deluge, we have Deucalion, which is equivalent to Noah. The grandson of Lapithos was a recast by the Jews into Noah. Now, but the strange thing about this all is the Greek myths mention Deucalion fathering 3 children, 2 sons and a daughter. Helene, Amphiacton, and Protogenia. But you see, Noah has 3 sons. Deucalion has 2 sons. Lapithus, one of the Titans, son of Uranus. His descendants, Prometheus, Atlas, and others, are often designated by the Lapithides or Lapitinidae and the feminine Lapotonois. Now, very interesting here. The author says, I suspect that Greek mercenaries from Iona, Caria, and Lydia, serving in the army of the Scythic pharaohs and invaded and annexed Judea with the Assyrian withdrawal of 640 BCE. What did I tell you? People, Nurse J knows her history. And Egypt had Judea by the balls, and Judea was a vassal state, and you have Greek mercenaries in the military of Egypt securing Judea. They had contact with the Jews, and thus the Jews, before going into the exile in 587 BCE, knew from them of Greek myths about Lapatides who had survived a flood, which they in era associated with their Jewish flood traditions, traced by biblical scholars to the Sharuppak flood of 2900 BCE near the Ur of Chaldees in Lower Mesopotamia and preserved in the Epic of Gilgamesh. That is to say, the liberal scholars are correct that Genesis flood, a later Hebrew recast of the Sumerian Sharuppak flood in Lower Mesopotamia, which occurred at 2900 BCE, but in the 7th and 6th century BCE, via the Greek mercenaries who served in Judah and Palestine, the Jews came to know of Lapithos' descendants surviving a flood called Deucalion's flood. And the Jews assimilated this flood to their earlier flood traditions, which were descended of the Sharuppak flood. Now, how it ever gets so interesting. Madai, that's in your nations, of these people that say, that's my land. Madai, Madia, called the Medes, a descendant of Japheth. And Greco-Roman myths about the Medes' descent from Lapithos. And I told you that the sons of Japheth, Gomer, Magog, Madai, Javan, Tubal, Meshach, and Tyrus. The researcher says that this Genesis statement that Media is a descendant of Japheth and is based on Greek myths from classical dictionaries. And it says, and they have compiled several genealogies on Medas, the son of Media, of Colchis, ancestor of the Medes, and his descent from the Greek Titan Lapithos. Lapithos, Prometheus, Deucalion, Hellene, Arlis, Crethus, Aeson, Jason of the Argonauts, who has an affair with Media of Colchis, their son being Medas. Strabo even makes Medas the son of Jason and Medea, while another account makes Medas the son of Medea and a Greek king of Athens, and Hesiod from the 7th century BCE makes Medea of Colchis the mother of Medas, and Diodorus Siculus from 55 BCE claims Medas is an Athenian descent. Herodotus on the Persians being named after the Greek hero Perseus says the people, the Persians, were known to the Greeks in ancient times by the name of the Saphinians, but they called themselves and were called by their neighbors Artenians. It was not till Perseus, the son of Zeus and Danae, visited Cephalus, the son of Belus, and marrying his daughter Andromeda, had by her a son called Perseus, who he left behind him in the country because Cephas had no male offspring. The book of Jubilees that they write that was not in the canon dated back to the Hasmonean period of 160 to 90 BCE, and it says seems to preserve the story of Medea fleeing Athens, Greece from Asia, settling in Medea. Jubilees explains that Media was allotted the islands of Aegean Sea to the west of Lydia. Not satisfied with this, Media obtains permission to settle in Shem's patrimony in Medea, near Elam in both accounts, Greek and Hebrew. An individual associated with Medea leaves a Greek area and settles in Medea. Here is Jubilees' account. And Japheth and his sons went toward the sea, and they dwelt in the land of their portion. But Media saw the land of the sea, and it did not please him. And he begged it from Elam and Asher and Arpachshad, from the brother of his wife. And he dwelt in the land of Media near his wife's brother until this day. And he called his dwelling place and the dwelling place of his sons Media, after their father Media. You see, it all fits when you write a book in the Babylonian exile of all this stuff. And then it really gets juicy when Alexander the Greek comes in and Ptolemy and all them come in, and then they say to the letters of Erastus, write the book. Alexander noted that Jews of the Talmudic area sought to identify Japheth with the Persians. Okay, I'm going to go on a rant for a second. If this book says that Japheth and Shem shall dwell together in the land of Israel under the same tent, then welcome your Iranian. This is hogwash. And what do? You kill Ham and Canaan for your European values and your bloodshed. And you want to know why that area is not liked? Because they know the truth. And we're dumb over here looking and going, oh, you're bad. You're the villain. The author says that Genesis has preserved a Greek myth about the Medes' descendants from Lapithos. The biblical scholars will have to reassess their views that there are no Greek concepts underlying Genesis' account of the nations and the world and their origins. Did the Greeks borrow Media, Japheth, and transform them into Medes, Lapithos from the Jews? Or did the Jews borrow this genealogy from the Greeks? I suspect the latter. Just how old is the Greek myth about Medes being the ancestor of the Medes, and dating this myth might help in establishing the earliest conceivable period that this myth could have entered the Hebrew Bible. The research suggests that the myth probably dates from the 5th century BCE, which is in your 400s, noting that the earliest literature presented Medes or Medos as the son of Jason of the Argonauts and Madai, but that Diodorus Siculus flourished in 55 BCE, preserves a version making Medes the son of Medea and the king of Athens. Aegeus, also the Median general, implying Medes is his ancestor on the eve of the invasion of Greece in 490 BCE. In 612 BCE, the Medes emerged as a world power, overthrowing Assyrian rule when Nineveh fell in that year. And the founder of the Median Empire went on to attack Elates of Lydia in 585 BCE, and the hostilities indeed ended in a draw when a solar eclipse occurred. Elatus married his daughter, Xerxes' son, cementing an alliance. The author says that he's proposing that the Jews in the pre-exile period from 640 to 587 BCE had their exposure to Greek mercenaries serving in Canaan and perhaps even in Judah under the pharaohs, came to learn of the Athenian Greek Medes myth and Medes descent from Lapithos. Thus, the anonymous author of the primary history, Genesis through 2 Kings, portrayed the Medes as descendants of Japheth. The primary history's last date is the freeing of the Judean king Jehoiakim in 560 by evil Merodach of Babylon, who reigned in 562 to 560 BCE. Now, what's funny is in the exilic period, this author was unaware of Jeremiah and his writings. Is it still possible that he identified the Medes with Japheth, who would co-rule Canaan with Shem? The answer is yes. Living in Babylon in the exile of 560 BCE, the narrator would know of Babylon's fear of the Medes. A great wall was constructed to the north of Babylon called today the Median Wall, whose purpose was to keep out Medes who might change their minds and decide to take Babylon and her empire in the west for themselves. A later Babylonian king, Nabonidus, feared the Medes. He was a native of Haran and wanted to restore its temple, but feared to enter Median lands to do this. An oracle assured him the Medes would be no threat, and that they would be destroyed by another power, Cyrus of Persia, and he rebuilt the Haran temple. So Noah's prophecy about Japheth and Shem co-ruling Canaan is never alluded to within the primary history as an accomplished event. The scholar says I have posted it as a hoped-for event to occur sometime in the future after 560 BCE. Now let's see what else he has to say. So, under the latter paradigm, the blessing for Japheth by Noah originated before the exile and Josiah's policies and resurfaced in the 560 BCE composition of the exile. So, let's recap. If we know Judea was a vassal state of Egypt, I've already explained this to you. And there were Greek mercenaries helping them fight against outside invading armies because they traded with them and did business with them in the Mediterranean. And they knew Egypt very well. And they brought down their stuff down to Judea. And they had that information. But then you also had the myths of Media-Persia and their descendants from Lapithos, Japheth. So it's a clear distinction that this Arthur, these scribes, long time ago, had this in full swing. And if you didn't notice, in your tables of nations, Ashkenaz, as in Ashkenazi Jew. Do you see how all of this is unfolding? And how they went and conquered the slaves or the black people from Africa on their slave trades. Myths. And we all say myth is fake. And we don't want to believe the stories of Jason and the Argonauts and the Anunnaki. Table of Nations. How deceptive. Go look at your classical mythology of Greek and find your Table of Nations. I challenge you. Now you will see, if you hold up the Bible and say, I put my trust in mythology. Now, is that called blind faith? I think it is. Until next time, have a great evening, guys. I sure do need my grounding because today has been a day. So, Hotep, Ashe, and we will see you soon.